All right, everyone, we should be live. I'm going to keep it down a little bit because, of course, the baby is asleep upstairs. New sleep schedule that we had to gravitate towards. When babies get to a certain level of development, they go through what's called sleep rejection. And if you don't nip it in the bud right quick, this can be a real problem when they're toddlers or a little bit later in life, fidgeting around, refusing to sleep. Taking what's called a bunny nap, for half an hour, something nod off, and then raise hell for several hours. So now you've got some Styx Hexenhammer ASMR. Some people are into that shit anyway. Anyway, we'll get right into the news, but let's make sure that we're live over on Rumble. I see the chat is working. Yeah, indeed, we're live. Let's make sure our tabs work as well. We got big news today, that's for sure. So I'm going to try to remind myself to keep it down a little bit. And of course, we can clank along. Clank ASMR, I guess. I'm heavily caffeinated. I'm on cup number 4, so it's a good time had by most, except for people that fucking don't like me. Let's see here, just a second. Making sure this is working. Make sure to share out the link also if you get the chance, because of course, YouTube throttles me. Rumble doesn't, but you should always share that out too. 126,000 subscribers. We're looking at 127, maybe 128 by New Year's. So it's going to be, it's big, honestly, getting up above 100,000 followers now on 4 different platforms. Of course, YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, and now Twitter as well, which we will be discussing at some degree of length. We're talking about all sorts of crazy shit. First and foremost, we'll go to the results of the Twitter poll that Elon Musk posted the other day. The final results are in, and the people of Twitter are voting to upend the Twitter order, telling Elon Musk he should step down as head of Twitter. This was his poll. Should I step down as head of Twitter? I will abide by the results of this poll. I think that he will, by the way. Yes, 57.5%. No, 42.5%. Leftoids, of course, are taking a victory lap right now, showing their cognitive dissonance. I would like to explain something. And because of their cognitive dissonance, none of these morons are going to admit to this being the fact. First and foremost, Elon Musk already told you some time ago that he did not intend to stay on as the head of Twitter. He's the owner of Twitter. He owns the site. That doesn't mean that he wants to take time out of putting satellites up, putting fucking Starlink installations in, making cars and shit, and doing the dumbass boring company stuff, which is definitely the weak spot in his various holdings, in order to sit there and micromanage everything going on in Twitter. He already told you his plan well over a month ago. I'm going to come in, I'm going to buy Twitter. He pretended that he didn't want to buy it for a while, but it went through. I'm going to buy the site. I'm going to come in. I'm going to break a bunch of toys, unban a bunch of people, and then I'm going to delegate the responsibility for the day-to-day site running to somebody else. I'm going to have a CEO. It won't be me. I'll still be in charge. I can still countermand the CEO's decisions. I can do whatever I want on the site, no holds barred. But I don't want to be involved with the day-to-day running, like, the layout of offices, which right now he literally has to do. The hiring, the firing, the actual day-to-day moderation. Right now, Elon Musk is sleeping at Twitter HQ, taking time off of all of his other various business holdings in order to run the company effectively, personally, with a very small skeleton crew of people. He already told people he didn't intend to do that permanently, just temporarily, to radically restructure the site, get it working, get people back onto it, generate attention, which even this is a huge win for him. He has 17.5 million people participating in this poll. Yeah, some of them are bots. Kyle Rittenhouse right now is livid, among other people. They're like, why would Elon do this? It's botting. The poll is wrong. He'll probably abide by it. It doesn't matter if it's botting. I wouldn't be surprised if Musk botted his own poll to kick himself out as CEO. And here's why. Let me explain to people that don't understand stage magic, because there's definitely an overlap with what we're seeing here. Right now, the leftoids are all up in arms. They're constantly trying to draw people onto other sites. They're constantly complaining to the legacy media. They're constantly defaming the site and Elon Musk with regards to my free speech. They're gaslighting on the Twitter leaks, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of shit going on. So what do? You need to bring people back to the site because it's an older site. And Twitter's almost, 2 fucking decades old. You need to bring people back to the site, get them aboard. He's already done that. You need to parse back some of the worst layers of TOS so that people can stay on the site. He's already done that. You need to make Twitter have less overhead. He's already done that. He's done everything that he needs to do, except one thing, which is get Twitter back into the lane where it's not getting hammered by government officials, the FBI, hint, hint, et cetera, and getting dragged constantly. You've gotten the attention. The legacy media makes it all negative. Craptovoids are rambling about your site on the site itself, and you need to stop that. So what do? You do exactly what you told people you were going to do. You take yourself and make yourself less visible, and you put forth somebody else who hasn't gone, totally ape on people on the site, banning Taylor Lorenz for no reason. All she did was ask a question. You separate yourself in the visible sense, partially from the site, no longer drawing fire, therefore. But the person that you put in as CEO still acts at your behest, presumptively is under an at-will contract. I can't imagine with his cantankerous attitude towards employees that won't be what Elon Musk forces on people. And you put somebody in there, probably someone who is within tech. Tom from MySpace effectively volunteered for the job. You could definitely do worse than that fucking meme coaster if you wanted to get him aboard. Tom from MySpace would work. Anyone would work. All they have to do is be someone who's not highly politicized. Then all of a sudden, some of the criticism of Twitter begins to dry up. Well, you've just solved everything. The leftoids will take a victory lap, and they'll think that they kicked out Elon Musk, and they'll congratulate themselves. Meanwhile, the site continues to be less censored. All of a sudden, all of that is forgotten. The fact that Elon Musk brought back the evil Nazis onto the platform, it's no longer an issue. They're not focusing on it. What are they talking about right now? They're talking about a fucking Twitter poll on Twitter, of course. They're not talking about the fact that a bunch of evil disinfo agents were let back on the platform like they were for several weeks. They're not talking about the bans of people like Lorenz, who they barely rose up to defend anyway because she's not very defensible. They're talking about Elon Musk being out. And now they're speculating about who the new CEO will be. Again, Tom from MySpace, you could definitely do worse, Elon. Just to be clear, a person in tech has a very rabid fan base, especially among millennials. Again, I think it would be a good idea, but we'll see. We'll wait and see. Here's the magic trick, though. When you do stage magic, the easiest way to do the trick is to distract people with something else. So you have the scantily clad magician's assistant. You have the pyrotechnics, you have the music and the soaring lights, you have the smoke, you have the flourish of the magician. The magician is flourishing over here with a tissue or a rabbit or something. The other hand's the one doing the trick. Elon Musk is distracting them right now, making them think that they've accomplished something, which they literally haven't. He's literally just distracting them while he does exactly what he told them he would do. While I would prefer that Elon Musk stay on as CEO, at least in an interim period, longer than the immediate future, the next few weeks, I would like to see him do that. He's doing a good job, generally speaking. He already told people about this, but their memory is too short to remember that. They think that they're the ones that are firing Elon Musk. They don't even realize he'll still own the site lock, stock, and barrel. Holy shit. He's hoodwinked these people. And I can explain the magic trick. Elon Musk is taking the left and the legacy media for fools right now. All of the reporting is Elon Musk conducted a poll and he lost. Haha. He's out at Twitter. He's got them completely distracted, completely bamboozled. You can explain the trick to them. They won't understand it. It's like, try to explain to a group of 4-year-olds how you made the rabbit disappear in the top hat. They won't get that either. They'll think that it's magic. Some super chats. Civic Nationalism, 1776. If Elon does step down, what if he puts someone that was previously a CEO like Jack Dorsey? Also, it makes you so sure that Twitter will stay as it is, because it's clear that he will still run the site. He will still own it. The CEO will be an at-will employee of Elon Musk, effectively the main manager of the platform. I don't think it'll be Dorsey, although that'd be funny. The former Twitter team apparently hoodwinked him too, so we'll see what happens. I personally think Tom from MySpace would be the natural pick. He seems to want the job. He's reigned over a social media site before that was highly successful. It'd definitely be a blast from the past, retro style. Victor Snyder, I am in Ohio. Will me playing the drum wake the baby? No, because I won't be able to hear it. IFID, some degree of length, my new glam metal band. John Smith, another Twitter shout out at Exposing Libs 101. Yes, I've seen your work. The landlord harassment channel, Sticks for Twitter CEO. I wouldn't take the job. No, I wouldn't be qualified. I'd be very good at public relations. I'd be very good at shit posting on the site and getting people interested in handling the legacy media hit pieces, but I don't know anything about coding. I certainly don't know how to manage an office environment, and I definitely wouldn't want to move to Frisco or wherever the HQ ends up possibly moving in the future. Durin Albane got a permaban on Twitter for asking if the video of the journal's getting laid off if one was in a GIMP dog mask. Lol, alt time. Chris Kelly, C to the L to the motherfucking ANK. MC, Sticks, can you tweet every time before you're going live? I did, I think. I put out a tweet, didn't I? Yeah, I put out a tweet. Thought maybe I was having a brain aneurysm or something. Thought I was going full Biden mode. Handsome Pete, clank sticks and coffee. Best way to start the day. I agree. And over on Rumble, Sigilstone 17, Musk stepping down, dilettante gonna dilettante. No, he already told people he was going to step down. This is not a revelation to anyone with a considerable memory span. Unfortunately, while mine is kind of shot post-OD many years ago, I remember these little details. I like to make sure that I've got my ducks in a row when I'm doing tech analysis. So yeah, Musk will presumptively step down. That being said, he's still in control of the site. And the leftoids, meanwhile, are completely distracted. So it's a win-win for him. He gets to run the site, but they will be distracted. He'll put some pretty face in there. People are bouncing around. Maybe Donald Trump. I don't think so. Jared Kushner. Probably not the greatest choice. Tom from MySpace. That would be a good one. Some people are saying Kanye. Kanye is going to lead the site. I don't think so. Just to be clear, there's a reason he was banned off of Twitter there for a while. I don't think he likes Elon Musk. Next news story, we've got the Twitter Files supplemental. This is effectively Twitter Files number 7. It's still damning. The FBI, again, coercing Yoel Roth and others at the company to try to censor lawful material. The bigger thing that I wanted to talk about here was actually Ted Lieu and people like that, legacy media, legacy politicians, neoliberals. And Ted Lieu likes to walk the tightrope where he's like, well, it's not the government's role to regulate Twitter. But here, let me completely gaslight and misconstrue what's being said in every single fucking Twitter release. Interesting dude, just to be clear. The FBI effectively insisted that there was foreign state disinfo on the site. And even some of the higher-ups at Twitter who are not averse to censorship said, well, we're not seeing it. What are you talking about? This is presumptively prior to the FBI giving them a list of accounts that presumably they thought were peddling foreign state disinfo. You will note that with a couple of exceptions, most of them are very small accounts, number one, and none of them were engaged in unlawful speech, number two, and yet action was taken against them. The real problem with the Twitter files that we've seen so far is the coercion, if not the outright unconstitutional attempt beyond insinuation and coercion to force Twitter to ban people for lawful things. U.S. citizens, again, the Bureau members are taxpayer funded. The First Amendment does apply to this scenario. That's really the concern. The attempt to coerce a private company into abusing U.S. users should be appalling to literally every American citizen. Even if you think, well, disinfo is a real big problem. Well, maybe they really were Russia-backed or something. You should be very, very appalled at what happened here. I would know if a site were banning a bunch of left-wing groups for similar things, you would cry foul. The hyper-politicization of the U.S. political atmosphere and the Western political world in general really is a cancer at this point, and it's why we don't have as much free expression anymore. People are unwilling to rise up and defend a person who's been abused, even by now here government interests that are taxpayer funded, simply because the other person is conceived of as being extreme. I've pointed this out with the legacy media. I do not want legacy media journos banned off of Twitter. I have no problem with them being punished if they run afoul of a legit TOS. Doxing would fall under that umbrella. Elon Musk said no permabans. I would hold to that, although Taylor Lorenz appears at the moment to have one. And that's the point. I believe in total free speech, even for sleazebag legacy media hacks. If they're not actively, with a specific post, doing the doxing or defaming or something like that, I have absolutely no problem with them existing on the platform. Temporarily ban them, suspend their privilege to post if they do something that's egregious, and unless it's illegal, of course, and then let them back on. If you have that sort of TOS, there's no room for the government to be able to abuse people's accounts because there's no longer any permaban methodology. That's what I think should be done. Yeah, Kim.com is Twitter CEO. That fat boy would not make a good CEO of Twitter. He's a loser. By the way, he's also very thin-skinned. He blocked me some time ago. Around the same time, Ron Perlman blocked me. By the way, I did decide to do an erotic story. I'm going to be releasing it on Amazon. It's a series of erotic short stories that deal with leftoids and their bizarre fantasies about Donald Trump. And because I've seen, like, they're so obsessed with him, especially his appearance, his dick in some cases, I figured, let's dig deeper into the mentality of someone who's got total TDS and total obsession. And we'll do, like, I wrote a couple today. One is Alexis and the other is Jeffy. And by the way, these bear no resemblance to real world individuals. They are entirely fictional. Yeah, disclaimer. You literally have to put it in your book. One thing is, though, on KDP, you can't do anything that's like sexual harassment, rape, etc. So these are just like weird fetishistic fantasy stories. I've got to write them carefully so I don't run afoul of the TOS. You're allowed to post erotica. As long as you don't have pornographic pictures in it, they don't have a problem with it. But you do have to stay within TOS. So I have a feeling that'll be a big seller. Unfortunately, there's not enough time for me to release it before Christmas as a stocking stuffer for your leftoid relatives to get off to. So we'll be doing that over the coming weeks, and I have a feeling it'll be quite popular. Josh Palillo, clank for me, funny man. There you go. Got to be quiet clanks today. We're doing Styx ASMR. Basically like a less artistically talented Bob Ross, I suppose. Kevin Lee, did you hear Robert Barnes likes Sticks and Hammer? Yeah, a lot of people say Sticks and Hammer. I've always found that funny. There's an H in there somewhere before the H in hammer, just to be clear. Sigilstone 17, Erotic Leftoid would make a good black metal band name. Yeah, imagine the weird song titles you could have with that. Shit fantasy and, scarfing my own piss and stuff like that. I am making it as degenerate as possible without violating TOS. Just to be clear, it's going to be probably more crazy than morbid stories, which some of you may have already read. Next news story, Eric Swalwell decided to violate my constitutional rights by blocking me on Twitter, actually. Link in the description. You can follow along with all of these. The third link is actually to his post. He had his kids playing around with a piano. And he was like, well, name this band. And one of my responses was more talented than daddy. And apparently he didn't like that. So he blocked me. Now, while I personally don't give a fucking shit whether Eric Swalwell, the fart man, bang, bang, fang, fang, nuke the U.S. citizens if they don't give up their AR-15s. I don't care if he blocks me personally. If anything, it's a badge of honor to be blocked by mental midgets. Ron Perlman comes to mind. Dash Dabrowski unblocked me at some point. I don't know exactly what happened there, so I can troll him again. We'll see how long it lasts. While I don't mind, there is a Fourth Circuit court decision in the United States that points out that on their official accounts, which this account quite literally is, it's Rep. Swalwell, this is his congressional account, cannot block U.S. citizens. To be clear, it is a violation of the First Amendment. So technically, Eric Swalwell is violating my civil rights every moment that he keeps me banned. We'll see if people can drill that through to him and say, hey, you do realize that Styx may be living in the Netherlands, but he was born in New Hampshire and he's a U.S. citizen, correct? That could be a problem. Maybe I should use the Fourth Circuit decision as a basis to sue him. That would be funny. I would do that, but I think I'd have to go to California, and I'd rather not set foot in that state. The big one might pop off at any given time, leaving me buried under 100 feet of gravel or something like that. I'll let Eric Swalwell take one for the team and go it alone in earthquake land. Wade Mikunda, Luke Rudkowski always calls you Stuxenhammer, lol. Yeah, a lot of people just shorten it to Sticks, which I like. Victoria Winter, cat turd for Twitter CEO. Yeah, that would work. Yeah, literally, a person called Cat Turd would do a better job than a lot of the people that are being optioned for that particular role, just to be entirely clear. Mungie, debunking CRT showed up yesterday. Many still supporting Dems. Seems they haven't suffered enough yet. How bad does it need to get before we get a major shift? Name is like Bungie with an M, by the way. All right, Mungie. I'm glad that you, I hope you like debunking CRT, by the way. It's going to have to get worse. Unfortunately, it's going to get worse. Just to be clear, a world recession is already looming. It's being warned of here in Europe and elsewhere for roughly the middle of next year, regardless of anything any of these countries do. Britain's already in a recession. Some countries already have fallen into that. I think Italy is on the list. A few of the Asian countries, China's slowing down again. They're all having problems. It's going to impact the United States. Biden could literally not exist. Trump could be president right now, and you'd probably be looking at a recession. And then the Democrats would blame it on him. Instead, they'll blame it on world economic conditions, which is only partially correct. Of course, lockdownerism in the U.S. did actually have an impact on the U.S. economy, and Biden glowingly endorsed it for the better part of a year. Tony Neve, Stick's going to write his own tale of Scrotty McBoogerballs. Yeah, the Alexis one is already off the chain. The Jeffy one's even more crazy. It involves dominatrixes and cat shit, actually. Leftoids are into some weird shit, and I figured, they won't talk publicly about anything other than their love for children. So I figured that I would elucidate some of their darker, deeper hidden fantasies, especially with regards to their nonstop masochism and their projection. It's almost a psychological work more than an erotic one. Nobody is going to get turned on by the idea of Donald Trump stuffing a hamburger into someone's ass or something like that. So it's going to be an interesting time. But yeah, the characters in it other than Trump are entirely fictional. Trump's a public official. I can use his given name because he's, the former president. That's not illegal or against TOS. For other people, the resemblance may be uncanny, but it's entirely coincidental. Hint, hint. And the next one is the Little Ronnie story. That one's definitely going to involve feces and urine, just to be clear. Next news story, Spiked has an article up. Again, disclaimer, I do not oppose or dislike Ron DeSantis. I do not consider him a shill, and I'm not sure that he's an astroturfed fake populist, although he's not as purely MAGA as Donald Trump. But when I see leftoid publications like Spiked saying a long read, the populist who gets things done, with Ron DeSantis, we see American populism shifting from words to action. As though Trump wasn't a man of action and wasn't simply stymied by the GOP uniparty. It's clear there is an AstroTurf attempt here. They're trying to get DeSantis up high enough where he thinks he has a shot at getting nominated so they can have a messy primary battle. I've warned about this for many, many moons, more than a year, actually. DeSantis is doing a good job as Florida's governor. He's relatively popular. He was wildly popular during re-election, although I would point out that even little Marco managed to exceed expectations by a decent margin. Some of that is literally just turnout related because of the voting system there. Ron DeSantis is doing a good job. If I were in Florida, which thankfully I'm not, although weather-wise, yeah, okay, I could take it for a little while, at least through February or March or something. I would vote for him. Definitely. I would vote to reelect Ron DeSantis. I would have been one of his voters. But I don't want him as president, at least not at this time. He needs more experience. He's more important as governor. That's number one. Number two, I notice, again, in their Trump derangement syndrome, even groups which attacked DeSantis frequently and said he was going to kill grandma by keeping the beaches open back during peak fascism, they're promoting him, and that rankles me. Some people misinterpret it as DeSantis is in on the joke and he's the one engineering it. I don't think so. I think it's the McConnells of the party that want to try to primary Trump to weaken him so that it's plausible if he goes into the general honk and then manages to lose against geriatric vegetable Biden, unlikable hyena Kamala Harris, completely untested and unqualified Pete Buttigieg, crazy Elizabeth Warren or something. It's not plausible for Trump, especially under the likely economic situation we'll be in, to lose to any of these people. So what you need to do to build plausibility beforehand is hammer him in a primary. Have somebody else who is upstanding comparatively. He's like the better version of Trump and younger. Trump still gets the nomination almost certainly because the writing's on the wall for that. But then he's taken a bruising and you can say, well, the GOP and partyists refused to solidify behind Donald Trump. A lot of them jumped fence to vote for Joe Biden. That's why he got 90,000 trillion votes. The writing's on the wall about what they're going to try to do. Just like with Ronna McDaniels, Kevin McCarthy, who Trump has stood down on criticizing, you'll notice there's a strategic reason for that. Mitch McConnell being in charge of the machinations of the Republican Party, it's obvious that they're going to try to deprive him of a platform, of money, of support, while doing the same to his political allies. They will find a reason to do so. In the end, I think Trump wins anyway, to be clear. Next news story. Sigilstone17 sticks his next career arc after editing Occult Works. Chuck Tingle 2, Electric Boogaloo. I'll still be doing occult stuff. It's just that I'm not going to pay for individual illustrations for one-off works that are essentially labors of love where it might sell 20 copies in a year because it's not fiscally worth my time. I can make far more money doing other things, including live streaming, by the way. So I'm going to fixate on compilations, a few of my own authored works, and I am going to go back and re-edit Fruits of Eden. That work can be much longer and in a much better format. After the Ashes, maybe even Morbid Stories. Some of the works that I've already released, I want to make like a final definitive edition, longer, better format. Go back through and see, there are a few grammatical errors here and there in some of those early works. Correct them, re-illustrate them, make them beautiful and more saleable, actually. I'm very proud of the books that I've released, but I'm especially proud of those that I wrote myself, more than the edited works. The compilation's also very good. I already have 3 planned for the upcoming year or 2. Those, again, will be compilations from the edited works I've done and possibly also other material that I won't release in a standalone form, but I can edit sections of it for inclusion. I would really like to do a history of alternative, like folk medicine work as well, in addition to the folk medicine compilation that I've already written, like a historical document. That'd probably be intermediate in length. I've got huge ambitions as far as the literary world goes. We've only scratched the goddamn surface. But I wanted to have 400 editions, then went back, realized that it actually technically wasn't fully 400 because the playlist was missing a few entries. So I just did 10 extras. I'm at 410, and that carries it through. So the next news story here. Adam Schiff posting this. Our criminal justice system has long been biased against people of color. Yeah, especially in Dem-run cities. I don't disagree with that, but we'll continue. And sentencing disparities between crack and cocaine have only made that worse. Attorney General Garland is right to do away with these inequitable distinctions. This is long overdue. Now, firstly, I approve of this. A person should not have an expanded sentence because it was crack instead of coke. It doesn't really make sense. They're on the same order. Crack is derived from coke. There is a disparity there. It doesn't really make any sense. What I would say is, first, it's a half measure. There shouldn't be a drug war at all. People should be able to possess crack and cocaine without the fear of being thrown in the gulag. There's literally there's no redeeming value to society for throwing people who are drug addicted in prison. There's no redeeming quality. The taxpayers have to fund their prison stay. You've potentially taken someone out of the workforce. There's no attempt to rehabilitate them, which means there's a good chance they get out and they immediately search for another crack bag. It really doesn't make any sense. I support decriminalizing all substances unless it's for sale, and regulation of the production of substances where that would need to apply. Of course, the production of certain substances can involve explosive materials and poisons and things like that. You'd end up with FDA quality control for your methamphetamine or something like that. I believe in decriminalizing drugs, but the big problem that I have with the way in which he phrases it is it insinuates that black people like crack a lot. Like the idea is white people snort coke. That's, and they get a lesser sentence because, they're white. But these brown people, these people of color, which is literally just colored people repackaged for a modern audience. It's funny how the hipster Zoomers don't understand this. They choose crack. Crack is the inner city drug. Well, to an extent, that's not entirely false. There are white crackheads in the inner city, too. I've seen plenty of compilations of footage from places like Los Angeles and Chicago and Detroit and Miami. Trust me, it's a plethora of different individuals that are smoking crack. Also a plethora that are snorting cocaine. I remember back in the day when politicians talked about disparity in regards to marijuana. The insinuation was black people were more likely to smoke the devil's lettuce. And so that's the reason we need to pull back on punishing people, because there's a racial disparity. No, it was always because there doesn't need to be a disparity in jailing people, because you shouldn't jail them for having marijuana. It was always bullshit. The idea that it was a gateway drug was wrong. The idea that it made you a criminal was wrong. The idea, by the way, that the average crackhead is a criminal is wrong too. Other than vagrancy and maybe vandalism or public urination or something, the average crackhead gets their fix at home, not actually in the alleyway. Viper smokes crack, supposedly. He's a should-be award-winning rapper, just to be clear. By the way, look up Viper the Rapper sometime if you want to have a good chuckle. I guess the idea is cocaine is, powder white. It looks like snow. And so, white people gravitate towards it. But that crack, that dirty stuff, so for the BIPOC or something. Adam Schiff is basically being a bigot with this statement. Civic nationalism, 1776. With other states starting to get defortified, what are your expectations for 24? And what would happen if Donald Trump made Ron Paul or DeSantis his running mate? Ron Paul's too old, although Rand Paul's not. DeSantis as a running mate could work. It's entirely possible. It would be a good pairing as far as re-solidifying support in party. Again, though, I think DeSantis doesn't want the position. I think he wants to continue as governor and wait for 2028 or something like that. The defortification will be helpful, but it's a slow, painstaking process. And unfortunately, some Republicans have figured out, this is unfortunate that it has to be the case, that if they're to even have a hope of putting the genie back in the bottle, pro tip, they won't. They need to begin ballot harvesting effectively in states where you haven't already banned the premise. It is a Ring of Sauron moment. You can beat the Democrats that way, probably handily. The problem is that once you have that power, you're not actually going to let it go. It'll be just like Citizens United. The people that bitched about Citizens United started taking the same corporate money, and now they don't talk about it. It'll be the same with ballot harvesting, and it'll make our elections less fair. Aussie's Robots. DeSantis expects constitutional carry to pass in 2023. Good. Excellent. He should now repeal the red flag laws that he championed. Wah! As a tiny hat, YouTube making me censor Yahoo, the ADL can insert YouTube censorship. They are leftoid hacks with a progressive agenda, and they only care about tiny hats when it can make them money. Yeah, it's sort of like BLM with black people or David Duke with whites. It's the same shit, different asshole. Craptivists, all of them. They can't get a regular job, so they got to parasitize other people. And then if you criticize them, somehow you're hateful against that group. It's like when I talk about David Duke being a grifter, whiter nationalists will show up and say, look, Sticks hates him. He's a self-hating white dude and shit like that. It's like, look at his fucking career. He held office briefly. What else is he known for? Hawking shit on his shitty podcast. He's done literally nothing for any white person other than himself. E100 Omega 123. It's insane and terrifying that the ADL has gotten away with influencing FBI agents for 8 years. It does explain a lot. Will anyone stop them? No, they won't, which is why the FBI should be disbanded. Azimuth Enigma. Sticks, I will never use Superchat 666. No, I said I would never take ad revenue. Of course, yes, you have to turn AdSense on to get Superchats, but there are no ads on my videos. If you ever see any, I'm not getting any money from them. Just to be clear. Next news story, we briefly covered this before. Ted Lieu running damage control for the Twitter files. The misleading Twitter files cherry picks examples, but anecdotes do not constitute data. No, his shitty BBC article constitutes data, supposedly. When you look at data across Twitter in 2020, what did it show? That Twitter favors conservative accounts. And then he uses the term gaslighting to reflect on Barry Weiss, Matt Taibbi, and Elon Musk. The irony is that this itself is the gaslighting. It's also multiple other fallacies. If you actually look at the BBC article, it's the same as the Newsweek article that he previously referred to, in which they simply replicate a very, very stringent set of data from a few months out of 1 year with artificial categorization of users in order to construe it as Twitter favoring people who are on the right wing of politics. It doesn't talk about the differential in banning or in suspensions or in the removal of tweets. It only talks about amplification. That's number one. That's skewed data, lies, damned lies, and statistics, number one. Number two, Twitter is effectively referring to itself in this study. If you're studying your own company in order to try to offset people making a claim about it, you can understand it's a little bit like listening to the Marlboro Company talk about how cigarette deaths aren't as high as people think, or something like that. The alcohol company has determined that cirrhosis is actually rarely experienced if you're only drinking light beer or something like that. Thus saith Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch, or something like that. It's like the police investigating themselves and saying, no, we did nothing wrong. Twitter is investigating itself. They're cherry picking the data. The irony is that cherry picking and gaslighting is from Ted Lieu's own article that he's posting here. It's not coming from Elon Musk. So that's problem number two. Problem number three is that you're using artificial categorization. You are artificially determining based on literally just your opinion, no objective metric that a person is conservative or liberal or independent or whatever. But you're going to skew those results if you have a bunch of left-wing individuals at Twitter, which is the original source claim that Twitter is left-leaning. If that is true, you can't trust the data from Twitter, because those people will look at Bernie Sanders and declare him a centrist. They'll say, well, yeah, he has a couple of views that don't line up with AOC. So basically, he's center left now, isn't he? I'll put him in that category. We've seen this before. I remember with the Data Society report, they were completely artificially labeling people's YouTube accounts as alt-right, alt-light, libertarian, etc. I was listed as alt-light. For some reason, Sargon of Akkad and his show were separately listed. I don't know if they realized how funny this was. And he was labeled, what was it? I think they labeled him, I can't remember exactly. I think one of them was labeled alt-light. The other one was labeled something else. You've artificially determined that the person is far right or far left or whatever. But that's in the eye of the beholder. That's literally just your opinion. There's no objective metric to actually use to make those categorical lists. That's the problem. Never trust statistics. Always look through them yourself with a critical eye. Maxwell Schools. My plan between now and January 27th is to continuously send emails to my Pennsylvania RNC reps telling them to remove McDaniel. No, that's a good idea, but I don't think, unfortunately, that it'll work. She'll probably keep her job. Donna K., I appreciate no ads on your videos. Thank you. Ministry of Wrongthink. Hey, Sticks just got on. So is Elon stepping fully away from Twitter, aka won't he still be able to have oversight over the new CEO and be able to fire them if they go full anti-free speech again? Yeah, exactly. It's a distraction. It's masterful magic, really, that he's doing. It's like a Houdini performance. He's distracted these people that have been breathing down his neck. Now they're doing a victory lap. They've calmed down. They think that they've won. And so they're not going to use Mastodon. They're going to stay on Twitter. They're not going to go to Tribble. It undercuts all of the competitors, number one. It undercuts the legacy media stink pieces, number two. And number three, now he can handpick a successor to run the site as the visible person running it while making the decisions anyway behind closed doors when they need to be made. Ozzy's robots. Other than Trump, the FBI will likely do whatever parties in power dirty work, which is why the Uniparty will never rein them in, just like the DOJ. Exactly. It's a cudgel against dissidents. MA61, who was president at the time when JFK was shot? JFK was the president when he was shot. Next news story. Everyone can now agree the U.S. has a border crisis. This is a CNN article, just to be clear. This comes from a couple of days ago, December 16th. I find this very, very funny because all of a sudden, because I can't remember if title, whatever it is being ended at the border. So the stay in Mexico policy is gone. Catch and release is being reinstituted. The border is going to be more open than it currently is very soon. All of a sudden, it's now fashionable for the legacy media to admit to what it should have been reporting on fucking before the midterms, which is, hey, tens of thousands of people are pouring across the southern border in any given week. It's unsustainable. It's untenable. Even if you want these people in the country and don't have a problem with them, it's impossible to process them all. Normally, citizens go through a process where they come of age, they register for things, they get an ID, they want a gun, they go through a background check. They want a car, they need a driver's license to use it. They have to show documentation they are who they are. Even if you don't want any form of documentation at all, though, you can't even sustain all of the people that are coming across the southern border. So, shit, even progressives should be worried about this, even if only for humanitarian, give us your huddled masses purposes. What's the point of having a huddled mass so large the country literally can't even give them any quality of life? It doesn't even make any sense. But now all of a sudden they're admitting to it. I wonder. Interesting. What happened a month ago? Oh, that's right. We had a fucking election, the midterms. I wonder why they waited for this particular opinion piece to drop at that time. In fact, it's not even a fucking opinion piece. This is analysis from one of CNN's own staff. We're seeing multiple stories of this kind at this particular moment right after the election ends. What a coincidence. It's interesting. It's almost like they didn't want to remind people, hey, by the way, they're literally suing the state of Arizona for attempting to close gaps in the border using shipping containers at the moment. They're literally suing the state of Arizona for that. They haven't completed the wall, including what was already pre-funded by the Trump admin. They haven't even set up the secondary, like the surveillance system. They haven't done anything. There are too few agents, even after the mass hiring Trump went on, too few vehicles. They can't process them all. You've had situations where like local sheriff's offices are like, we don't even have the ability to do anything. We detain these people when they come across. We don't even have time to fingerprint all of these people. And then we just turn them loose. We let them go on the streets and say, well, welcome to America, I suppose. I have no clue who you are. I can't determine what country you're from. You're going to disappear off into the woodwork and maybe end up in slavery or something like that. But it's considered humanitarian somehow. Enslaving a bunch of people from Mexico and Nicaragua and Honduras is considered to be a good thing by the American left. It's crazy. Elemendorius, hey Sticks, what's your DM policy on Twitter? Also, holy crap, the leftists on Twitter have no grounding in reality. I didn't know it was this bad. Yeah, I would explain to them the magic trick they've just witnessed and how Elon Musk has completely goddamn bamboozled them, but they wouldn't listen. In fact, I talked to a couple of leftists earlier publicly on Twitter. They didn't believe my particular analysis and told me to cope. Very interesting. I have a feeling they'll be the ones coping fairly soon. You can DM me on Twitter if you want. My DMs are open. I only respond to news tips generally, though. Magi Gooder. The media also admits the border crisis after the illegals started showing up in their neighborhoods. The strategy worked. Yeah, once they went to Martha's Vineyard, all of a sudden it became a problem when the government decided to bus immigrants around the country. The Grizzly, it's colder than Satan's taint out here in Michigan. It's only 22 right now. That's only a quarter as cold as Camel Toe's frozen heart. Joe. Joe. And the final news story. Oh, wait, there's a super chat there. Over on Rumble. Music and fiction. Do you think that Musk will melt leftist minds by appointing or choosing Jared Kushner as CEO? It would be utterly hilarious to see the salt mines increasing production. It's a long shot, but I mean, he was hanging out with him the other day. It's funny because a lot of these people sound awfully Islamophobic because they were panning Elon Musk for hanging out in the same section that there were some Saudi Arabians in their robes and turbans and shit. I thought to myself, if a right-winger complained about like Hunter Biden being in such a crowd, they would be called bigoted for it. Bigoted conspiracy theorists. Devin Selnez, the Grizzly 22 degrees is balmy at worst, my guy. Sigil Stone 17, the feds will finally act when citizens pop off and start dealing with the invading migrants on their own, and it won't be to secure the border. This is the stuff civil wars are made of. I disagree. I think that many people are long suffering. I think that the real sea change will be that all the sanctuary states will start going more red. We're already seeing it in New York. Look at what Lee Zeldin accomplished. And the final news story, Vice President Kamala Harris making a post here. As the great Harvey Milk once said, rights are won only by those who make their voices heard. Because millions of Americans made their voices heard, marriages are more secure. Now, first and foremost, the Respect for Marriage Act is basically a Band-Aid on a non-wounded piece of skin. Nobody was coming for interracial marriages. The chorus of right-wing moralists who decry gay marriage has really gone from being a big thing in the United States, maybe in the 2000s, to a minor thing in the 2010s, and now has all but disappeared. The Republican Party effectively has shoved these people aside, the same way that the neoliberals and the Democratic Party keep muzzling people like AOC, although less successfully. The evangelocon moralist days of the Republican Party, if not over, are at least on the wane, and they haven't been this, quiet in, more than a couple of generations. So number one, making marriages more secure, while it's a great concept and it's like, okay, at the federal level, people can get married and blah, 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 it's fine. There's no problem with it per se. And by the way, some people hyperbolically ranting about how this will force your local church to perform gay ceremonies. That's not actually going to be the case. And this federal law could be superseded by a state law anyway, under the 10th Amendment potentially, and or by court case, just to be clear, although it won't be because there's no real public ethos against interracial and gay marriage at this point. That's, again, it's become a niche sort of little thing. Here's my point here, though, with regards to this particular post. It's a tweet, of course. She's using the evildoer's platform to put material out to her fans. She should go to Mastodon so she can talk to 10 people as part of an echo chamber that will still comprise people that mainly use Twitter, just to be clear. Elon Musk is not as worried as he sounds. Don't worry, he's not in the doldrums right now. He's chuckling at himself. Rights are won only by those who make their voices heard. Exactly. It's interesting how she makes this tweet around the same time as the Twitter files being released now, isn't it? Yeah, American citizens have been silenced now for years because they have a difference of opinion with fascism, or they have a difference of opinion with what the FBI says, or they have a difference of opinion with some legacy like big tech network or some legacy media outlet. They're called conspiracy theorists. They're debanked like BitChute, although they're British-based, so it's a little different. They are defunded under ESG. Their companies can't get investment. They have to fight with an arm tied behind their back. They're told to sit down and shut up. They're profiled by cops. They're profiled by the government. They're openly defamed on public platforms. And they're effectively goaded or even threatened or even jailed into silence. Yeah, no shit. Rights are won by those who make their voices heard, which is why you're constantly trying to muzzle the voices of people that you ideologically disagree with. You've been doing this to leftoid groups too. Kamala's a neoliberal. Just so people are aware, she's a lifelong corporate crook neoliberal. She's not a leftist. You remember when Facebook was purging a bunch of Facebook groups and pages? This was 5-6 years ago. You remember how everyone said it was an attack on the far right? Oh, they shut down the alt-right page. They shut down the TradCon gathering profile for TradCon marriages or something. Do you remember how Cop Block and a bunch of other progressive groups were banned at the same time? Didn't get as much airplay, did it? What about with the IRS scandal with Lois Lerner under the Obama admin? Everyone talks about them keeping tax-exempt status from right-wing groups, which were outside of the GOP, like McConnellite Uniparty, at the time the Boehner Uniparty too, now McCarthy. But they never talked about all the progressive groups that were similarly denied. That's because they wanted to promote the idea that it was one-sided. As long as you can keep everything looking one-sided, only half the population will oppose what you're doing. If you convince the leftoids that they're not being targeted, then they won't join with the MAGA or with, at the time, the Tea Party to protest. They won't protest the decision, even if it is government-centric to begin with, literally involving the IRS or the FBI or whatever it happens to be. Lance Corporal Veteran here, 5 Antifas arrested in Georgia for terrorism. I did see that story, yes. Jill Warden, interesting debate between libertarian and conservative last week on Tim Pool's program. Michael Knowles versus Luke. Knowles blames a lot with the right on libertarians. Very interesting. Blame the party that has never held power, but held ideological sway up through the first century of the United States' existence. Did pretty well at the time. Denine sorry, after seeing the leftward movement of the last 20 years, I don't trust that won't happen mentality. It's been used for too many things that are now happening. Yes, but not universally. And sometimes people make links between things that aren't linked. Like there are still people who say that Drag Queen Story Hour is the result of us allowing gay marriage. No, it's not. What the fuck are you talking about? You talk to some actual gay people and find out if they want little kids to have a naked ass shaken in their face. Most of them will say no, just to be clear. Alamandorius, does it go left-leaning, leftist, leftoid, an ascending level of cringe? Yeah, generally. By the way, no more super chats, please. I got to get through a couple more. I'm going to keep it a little bit short because, again, I don't know how long the baby will sleep. And I've also got to make cottage pie tonight. And I'm making it with fresh carrots, too, so it's going to be extra good. Sigil Stone 17. The feds will finally act when citizens... Oh, I already read that one. Rel 21,000. For those who think the reps can beat the Dems at their own corrupt game, if Soros started donating to the reps instead of the Dems, do you think his dual citizenship would be at risk? No, not as long as he's donating to unipartyists. I'm sure some of his money happens to be in McConnell's pocket as well. Sigil Stone 17. I'm not sure there's a nonviolent solution to the immigrants at this point. I would disagree with you. I think there is. There's too many. If a government is voted in to deport them, they'll just get violent once it's tried and all hell breaks loose. No, I think that deportation is possible, but I think you need to be a pragmatist about such things. I do not believe in deporting some random kid who was, for instance, born on U.S. soil. Yes, I know I'm a magical soil fallacy and stuff. Okay, can it? For legal purposes, they can't be deported. I have no problem with them having a parent or guardian that also was technically illegal at the time, as long as they haven't broken any laws, they're willing to pay back taxes and shit staying, because, of course, otherwise, the state has to pay for the individual. It's cheaper to just keep the other person in the country. If a person has gone to college, etc., some of the dreamers gone into the military. Typically, the United States and other countries do grant residency to people who are willing to fight for you. That's not a problem. You're still left with a chunk of 8 or 9 million people at that point. They don't qualify for asylum, although a handful of others do. They don't have any legitimate reason to be in the country. They should be deported. in my opinion. The real problem with doing that right now is really sanctuary states and cities, number one, and the fact that they're not making an attempt to do so, number two. If you had a government incepted that did make that attempt, like Trump did, number one, you slow down the flow of people in, and number two, you increase the flow of people out. It's as simple as that. It takes time. You can't do it all at once without violating especially the Fourth Amendment, by the way, but it can be accomplished. Getting black-pilled about it, though, is the easiest way to make sure that it doesn't. It really starts, though, with securing the border. But of course, the current administration, the odds of them doing that are effectively zero. They'd rather tear down border wall than put new wall in because they want slaves. I hope that all of the people that come into the United States illegally realize most of you are not going to have an easy life, and effectively you're being used as slaves and political pawns. It's really rather sad when you think about it. By the way, 5,500 people watching live. And today is a little bit of a slow day, actually, all things considered. Yeah, sanctuary cities are illegal. I would agree. Pending court cases, though, there's not much to be done about them. If the city is not willing to cooperate with ICE, it's kind of difficult. And the shoe is on the other foot in some cases. Of course, there are sheriff's offices in cities around the country and states that refuse to cooperate with the feds on gun control. Most of us, I think, watching right now would like that. Now, it's basically the same thing, though, ignoring marijuana laws and saying it's legal in our state, even if the federal government thinks that it should be illegal. This happens all the time. It's just that with the immigration issue, it's a little bit more pressing, and there's really no constitutional basis because they're not citizens to protect these people the same way as protecting a U.S. citizen's right to privacy by saying, okay, you can grow a weed plant. Protecting their Second Amendment rights. It's not apples to oranges, but it's close to it. Anyway, I think that I'm going to be going offline now so I can get a few other things done. At some point, I might even have time later to play a video game for a while or something. I haven't done that in literally months. That's about all. Peace out.